Some monsters lurk in the dark corners of the woods. Others hide beneath our beds, waiting for the lights to go out. But some are born from the depths of our own imagination, and yet somehow become real. Slender Man isn't an ancient legend or a creature of folklore passed down through the generations. He was created in the modern age, a faceless horror that spread like wildfire across the internet.
But here's the thing about ideas. Sometimes they take on a life of their own. And in one horrifying case, belief in Slender Man led to a real-life crime that has shocked the world. How did a fictional entity inspire real-life violence? And is Slender Man just a story or something more?
Zumundous.
And welcome to Zumundous podcast, episode 26. I'm Doolin.
I'm Keith.
And we have our guests from last episode are back. We have
Greg McIver.
Rick.
and Rick. All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the myth of Slender Man. Now we know this isn't really a cryptid or a ghost story because we know that Slender Man is entirely fictional, based on
What?
It is a movie, right?
it is a movie, and we'll get into that a little bit here. But so it's kind of funny.
That's a bad one.
Slender Man is really one of the most modern urban myths that you can think of, that you can call out, because it's we have the origins of it. We know exactly where the character came from and how it grew. So a little bit of backstory on Slender Man. So Slender Man was actually created back in 2009.
Yes.
By a man named Eric Knudsen, who goes online, or he went by the online handle of Victor Surge. Now there was a contest on the website called Something Awful, specifically
somethingawful.com.
it was a Photoshop contest.
They did that a lot.
Yeah, they did that a lot. So it was basically create creepy content and stuff. So
is that where they did the giants, the legendary giant thing with the skeletons, and they made them look real? It was a big
possibly. I don't know anything about that.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, they look convincing. They're all fake.
So he took a couple of he took a couple of images, just random stock images and stuff, and he photoshopped this really creepy, tall, faceless man into it, and it just kind of blew up. Now these images found their way onto 4chan and went viral. 4chan. It's 2009, man. And soon, before you know it, we had different people are kind of adding their own stories, their own takes on Slender Man. And he started appearing in videos on YouTube, games, even Minecraft. If you guys have played Minecraft, the Enderman character on Minecraft, if you've ever, I guess you've the look of Greg's confusion. I've played Minecraft. There's an Enderman, which is very obviously a parody of Slender Man in Minecraft. So that just kind of tells you this thing soaked into the cultural zeitgeist really quickly and in a big way.
It even has its own video game.
It does. Yeah, no, he does. Slender Man. Yeah, he has. I think he might have more than one. But I remember watching. There's a YouTuber named Markiplier, and I watched his run through of the Slender Man video game. Very much a horror video game where you're running and trying to evade Slender Man. It's that kind of thing.
Does he chase you?
Yes, he very much
So he doesn't just. It's not like Fatal Frame. He just appears in pictures.
Right? Is there a theme song he's slender, not tender? He'll get
it's that Bela Lugosi.
The Monster Mash.
I wonder.
Was it grave?
Can you describe
Monster Mash?
Can you describe the Slender Man?
Yes, I can certainly do that. Actually, so Slender Man appears as a tall, faceless man with long, bony fingers.
Okay.
It's basically he just has a big white face. He's usually wearing a black suit, sometimes with a black tie, sometimes with a red tie. Just depends on how he's depicted. Usually between 6 and 7 feet tall, but depending on the video or the picture he appears in, sometimes he might appear taller, that kind of thing.
He's a big guy.
Big guy, no face, and sometimes has appendages coming out of his back, almost like Dr. Octopus kind of thing.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this really kind of put him. You remember, you were a kid and you heard stories about Bloody Mary and things like that. This was
Candyman.
really
Great
Candyman
movie.
was another one. Well, that was a movie,
Scary,
obviously.
yeah.
But this was like very much a modern day, and like where a lot of these urban legends that we grew up with, kind of spread like, on the playground, on the bus and things like that. This was something that happened on the internet. So somebody would post it and immediately there's like 12 people that could just add their own takes and their own levels of mythology to it. So it really picked up steam and grew really, really fast. And they kind of, so they kind of morphed him into like an internet concoction that was like he was always standing like on the edge of the woods. Like, so he was always kind of like in the woods, but always like in the background watching children. So I think it kind of preys on that, like
creepy images.
I mean, which is what it was always meant to be. It was meant to be creepy images.
Yeah, it inspired a lot of fan art stories and role play, and I think that's exactly what you're alluding to. And he was always said to abduct children. That was part of the
or stalk children.
The origins,
sometimes, and sometimes for months or even years. Like I think there's like some Slender Man stories out there where somebody. There would be like a guy or a girl, and they would see Slender Man as a kid, and now as an adult, Slender Man is still stalking them, and and eventually it comes to a head. Yeah, right? I mean, very much so. Like, kind of the same idea.
Way better than Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah,
I've never seen it.
It's not good.
Neither have I.
So he's always kind of appearing as like a passive aggressive sort of malevolent figure stalking targets for years at a time before attacking, kind of wearing them down. And it's kind of understood that in this context, he's torturing his targets mentally over long periods of time using fear and paranoia to drive them to insanity. So there's no real explanation, reasoning, or behind like why he does this or how he chooses his victims, but his motivations are not fully understood. Now, I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there that probably did like a Slender Man origin story. I'm sure that exists somewhere on the internet.
But we're not here to fancy your creativity.
Well, right there. Well, before we'll get to the true crime thing here. In a bit,
I'm not trying to segue. I'm just saying, like, who knows?
All right. So here's some of his abilities that start from like it all started from like a Photoshop photo. Here's some of the abilities that Slender Man is said to have. Okay, as like a horror character, selective invisibility. So like maybe kids can see them, but adults can't. The ability to change his height and body shape, the ability to shape his arms into tentacles, and the ability to sprout tentacle-like appendages from his back and shoulders to be used as additional arms or legs. So if like you're running from him or something, maybe he can lash a tentacle out like 30 feet and grab you by the leg and pull you back. Kind of thing. Yeah.
Sounds like a great guy.
Yeah, you could shake your hand from across the room.
Yeah, but no, it's really. I mean, but like he's very much like he was an internet boogeyman. For the longest time. Like he only exists on the internet and in people's imaginations. Whereas like a lot of these other ghost stories that we hear today, like there's always like like no, I heard that. It actually happened back in the 1500s when so-and-so got beheaded and then she vowed vengeance on blah, 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 blah. This, like we can see the history because for some of those other urban legends, we don't have like a clear origin story for like who created these stories. But for this, like it's all there on Reddit, 4chan,
right.
You can
there's
see,
facts.
There's facts and stuff like
that. This isn't like 83% of internet ghosts are created on the internet 83% of the time.
And 97% of statistics are made up on the spot.
On the spot.
Abraham Lincoln.
83% of the time.
No, he said don't believe everything you read on the internet. That's okay. I just want to make sure we're...
You cited some pretty hard statistics
His
there.
dial-up
I can't help
must have
but
been
not
weak.
believe it.
That's right.
It's actually 56.
I wonder if Mike Flanagan was inspired by the Slender Man at one point, because if you remember the Haunting of Hill House, one of the ghosts
that's a
very, very tall with a cane.
Okay.
It's Hugh Crane.
Is it Hugh Crane?
Yeah.
Okay, but just his, their depiction of him reminds me very much of what you're describing.
The patriarch of the household.
Okay. But
it's
tall,
supposed to be him.
thin.
He does have similarities to the Slender Man in look.
So I'm wondering if he was inspired by that a little bit.
I have to take a second. I love your depth of knowledge in all of this, Hollywood and beyond.
I point out the ghosts. He knows their names. It's like it was a ghost. He's like,
I give him the characters.
You know what it was?
He gives me
A
actors.
friend of mine just recently watched it. So
the Slender Man movie? Or?
No. The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, yeah.
So it was fresh in my imagination. So even talking about this, I also went to that. And so you bring it up.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that.
So almost...
Go ahead.
Faded.
I know. Not start that
episode.
shit again.
The origins, or I should probably say not origins, but inspirations are kind of murky. But there's trace sightings of similar figures back to Germanic folklore in early 20th century photographs, and the modern myth. Even though it began in 2009,
like Santa Claus,
people have kind of retroactively placed him back there in like the early 1900s and things like that. So like as more and more of these photos started to pop up, like people started to craft like a like almost like an origin for this guy. You know, it just kind of happens organically. It's in the cultural zeitgeist. At
by
that
the
point.
way, by Santa Claus, Santa Claus is totally real. I'm debating whether or not he's a Viking or like a Gaelic, fighter or something.
He's a giant elf, okay,
or a recon marine. I've heard that too. Santa's pretty good at stuff and things. Anyway, so
that's so fucking awesome.
Slender Man is crazy. My personal. I never watched the movie, to be honest. I have to say before we decided to do this.
Started, and then I didn't get very far into it.
But I always knew what he looked like, and when somebody's mentioned him, since the first time I heard it, when somebody said Slender Man, I knew exactly what they were talking about. I don't know why, and I didn't read Creepypasta or Awful.
Should we talk about that? How we all first came upon them?
I mean, I just remember seeing some pictures, and they're like Slender Man. I don't even think I really became aware of it until the event happened in 2014.
Somebody must have watched them. I don't know when the movie came out either, to be honest.
2018.
So yeah, that's too modern. Well, we knew about this thing way before that.
That's why. I mean,
it's kind of weird. I don't even know why I knew it. But I did see, and we all saw because there's pictures of it. A guy or a girl in a Slender Man costume at Dragon Con. We were walking by.
Oh yeah, sure.
And it's funny because they were just standing there, like creepy.
Just standing there, creepy. They're cosplaying
right next to where everybody's walking by, and it's like, oh, cool, Slender Man.
Yeah, just kind of standing there. It's just kind of funny because in all the pictures and stuff, he's never attacking anybody. He's always just kind of like in the background watching.
He's minding his own fucking business.
Yeah,
it's become like a thing.
I'm Slender Man. I'm just doing my own thing.
Everybody knows it. I don't know anybody who doesn't know Slender Man.
Yeah,
nobody knows how they know it. That's
like
weird.
A tall tale.
Yeah, it's an internet tall tale.
And for the record, I've actually never been on 4chan. I don't even know. I don't do any of that stuff. So like something awful.com, didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
Creepypasta I'd heard of course, with the ghost stories, but there's plenty of ghost stories on YouTube and stuff like that you see. But I don't even know why I would know about this, but I've always known.
Well, because he's in the cultural zeitgeist. That's how you know about it. Like there's video games, there's a
simulation programmed into my brain.
Robin versus Slender Man.
But he's always kind of like a passive, like he's never actually coming at you until he does, but relentless stalker. Now victims as part of the lore report paranoia, like always looking over your shoulder, which is I think that preys on like sort of that kind of base instinct we always have. Like, if you're walking down the street in the dark, like, you look over your shoulder because that's just something that you do, and I feel like that's something that we can all relate to.
Ted?
But victims, according to the stories, report paranoia, hallucinations, seeing things that aren't there, and a condition dubbed slender sickness. Which is basically like hallucinations, nosebleeds, disorientation, that kind of thing. So
like heavy drug use.
I think these guys.
There might be there might have been drugs involed. I don't know.
To quote Charlie Murphy, cocaine is a hell of a drug.
But yeah,
can you imagine Slender Man is just like it's a name for like he's on heroin.
That's
the Slender Man got him.
You mean Florida Man? That's Florida Man.
The Florida Man's methed out.
That's
that's the quintessential.
Yeah. His appearance is supposed to be unsettling but non-violent. Like I said, he doesn't attack you until he does.
Well, it seems like that's how it grew. It's just creepy enough to then let your imagination.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and those are always the best movies. Which this became a movie. Jaws. You don't show.
Yeah, exactly. Jaws is great.
Alien, the original.
it plays on the same thing. And Alien as well.
Yeah,
it's
very,
like,
very
or,
well
or
done.
Blair Witch Project is another example.
Yeah, that's
like,
a good one.
It's
Yep,
it's most of the movie isn't being attacked. It's being stalked, followed, and watched.
Yeah.
And letting your paranoia set it.
Yeah, exactly.
Lincoln.
Exactly.
Oh, of course. Wilkes Booth is just in the corner. You just have to look and find
Well,
him.
Abraham Lincoln was a Slender Man.
Well, he was in
Oh.
Vampire Hunter.
Yeah, well, that was
I saw that documentary. It was
that's a
good.
hell
It
of
was
a
really
movie.
good. But
Ken
it's
Burns is.
so like
I love Ken Burns.
Oh yeah, he's great.
So 2009, this character was kind of introduced to the internet, went viral, picked up like wildfire. Lots and lots of people just kind of added their own elements to the myth. But then, not 5 years after he was introduced, some shit happened, and this is where like some shit happened.
Yeah, some shit.
Some shit happened.
Oh man!
But this is where like it takes a turn from being like just a creepy internet urban legend to stepping
Creative.
into to the real world.
Yeah, and this is just weird, man. It's weird for a couple things because it's really sad in the long run. And there was a crime associated with the Slender Man. And now, of course, everything is all somber and stuff. So on May 31st in 2014, two 12-year-old girls, Alyssa Weiner, Weir and Morgan Geyser lured their friend, Peyton, I don't know how to say her name, Lutner into the woods near in Wisconsin.
It's
right?
Wisconsin.
This is horrible, right? And they stabbed her 19 times. Okay.
They said her 19 times. I thought that was just an afterthought.
One of those things.
In a vain attempt to appease this fictional character, the Slender Man, Peyton, actually the victim, miraculously survived and was found later that day. And by found later that day, I looked up a lot more on this. She crawled out and found a cyclist, flagged him down, or her, I think it was a male, and then they got her to the hospital and she lived, right? But her actual wherewithal and resilience.
That's great, but also really shitty murderers. I just want to say to stab somebody 19 times and focus your craft, man.
She is still pretty baller.
But this girl's
times were in the shoulder though.
Will to live was pretty amazing, right? And I actually have listened to a little bit of this. I hate true crime stuff. I really think it's ruined a generation. Like when we were kids, like some of the stuff was fascinating, and then it got to the point where like
every podcast does it. Kind of thing.
You date a girl and she's like, "Oh yeah, I would totally have gotten in the car with that creepy." What's the guy who asked people to not Jeffrey Dahmer. What's the other
Jason Voorhees?
No, like people are obsessed with these criminals, and I just it's weird, right? They're bad.
It's
right?
too much.
They're just bad. All right, so
it kind of over exposes them.
Yeah,
not because I think you're going to damage people if you expose them. More
but that's an interesting.
It's a romanticization.
Exactly. And that's why
shouldn't be what it's about.
That's why I'm not in a true crime. So there's no fake crime in movies and stuff. We don't need to celebrate. Quote, unquote,
I've never really gotten into true crime. My only exposure, my exposure to it really is.
I like history. I mean, but
that's pretty much where it falls into, right?
It's mostly from a description of it at the beginning of the show, Only Murders in the Buildings. So true crime.
I know this is a little bit of deviation. Sorry.
Yeah, no, but for me though,
but it's playing into what it's going to be about,
right? True crime. What exactly? Describe it to me. As if you're explaining it to somebody. So
if I was doing a documentary about this crime, which we are kind of doing right now, we're going to talk about all the facts and some opinions can go into that. It's when they put the email address and how to contact the victim, or not the victim, but the criminal, and you could become their lover in prison. Like it gets a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'm being facetious when I say that.
That's even before.
But these people start getting into the mentality that they're obsessed on why they did the crimes, and then they almost start celebrating it in a weird way on regular documentary channels. Everybody in your family is.
I'm going to throw this out there, and there was this weird thing that happened on this is like an internet thing that happened on TikTok in this last year or whatever. There's a man who killed, I want to say, don't quote me on this, I want to say 2 women, not to be confused with Deadpool. His name was Wade Wilson, and he had like the facial tattoos, and he even had a fucking swastika tattooed on him and stuff.
I saw a picture.
And horrible person. He was a conventionally attractive man, and even there was like very disturbing comments from women like, "Oh my God, he's so hot." It's like, he fucking killed 2 women, bro. Like, what the hell is wrong? That is not the type of hot you want, man.
I don't know if you've seen the media thing, and I'm not getting into politics of this or whatever. Like, I get people going through awful things, but the guy who just shot the person in New York, supposedly, right? That's all. I'm not in the I'm not on the case, right? But everybody's like, oh, but he's so attractive. He has to be innocent. Oh, I'll be his girlfriend.
The thread
while
here.
he's like, I'll get that conjugal visit. It's like, whoa, what the like this dude just killed somebody.
So you're taking true crime instances and you're extracting
creepy.
Various fantasies.
Yes, it's exactly what it is. Because like a lot of, I think,
it's a little odd.
It's
anyway,
I think the dangerous man is kind of like an archetype that people are attracted to, but also, this is more than just being dangerous. Like this is like this guy will kill you.
This has with the Slender Man thing, it has like a cult.
So this is a weird thing. Okay?
This is kind of where it goes.
And I'll go to this. And we're actually not even talking about like that's just a whole separate thing that we're talking about true crime just being crazy. But the motivation for this, these are kids, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Like what are they, 14, 13 years old?
12.
Oh God.
12, yeah.
Jesus.
Wisconsin.
Anissa, some people say, I don't know how to pronounce her name, and Morgan, they claim that they believe that killing their, I guess, friend or whatever, Peyton, would prove their loyalty to the Slender Man, and he would allow them to live in his mansion. They felt that the Slender Man would harm their families if they didn't follow through with his order. Now, this is pretty wild, right? So the psychological profiles of both of these people, the perpetrators, as it says, I don't know. Some of this is this is internet. I didn't read the court cases for testimonies and stuff like that. I worked in a law firm, as a lot of people know, and I didn't look up anything. This is all subject to the internet, whether it's accurate or not. So both of the girls were diagnosed with mental illness. Okay,
obviously.
Morgan was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and Anissa was found to have a personality disorder. Okay, and from what I've read, she was kind of the instigator. And this raised questions about the influence of their mental health of their actions and whether they understood what they were perceiving on the internet and what became reality and stuff like that. But both the girls said that I've heard, this is all internet, YouTube videos and stuff like that, that they started hearing his voice and he was talking to them and whatever, like your inner monologue basically starts saying crazy stuff. It's kind of the way I took it. And they kind of manifest this whole thing. And, the case highlights the dark side of the internet subcultures, right? Your 4chans, your Reddits and stuff like that, where they can become really immersed in all these, online communities and stuff like that. And there's a lot of positive stuff on the internet too. You can become immersive, I don't know, whatever you're into, right? But like the mythos is it played a significant role in their kind of not mental breakdown, but like their perception of reality when this went down.
Sure.
So this girl, like I said, she got stabbed 19 times and she flagged down a passing cyclist and she went to the hospital, all that good stuff, and survived the attack. That's great. Long story long. Both girls are charged, right, with first degree attempted murder.
As well they should be.
Because not murder, intentional homicide, the whole thing.
Yep.
So Morgan Geyser was found to be mentally ill and was sentenced to 40 years in a mental institution. And so right there, that's an interesting fact because, we've been told for several years that mental institutions straight up don't exist anymore. Okay. So a mental institution, not a prison, but a mental institution. 40 years is a long time.
You just changed the name of it, right? Like they're they're in a mental health facility.
Well, that's just, everybody says they shut them down in the 80s, and this is why we have all these crimes now.
They don't have as many,
right?
And they don't have...
and that's an internet thing. That's been projected on the internet, is that we don't have mental health facilities, so all these crazy people are out killing us.
It's not true that it's gone.
Right. There's probably like this much truth in there.
But there is closing. I mean, Staten Island has a very famous one, another kind of Slender Man thing.
Right?
The Cropsey. That thing.
Oh.
Yeah, that's like once the facility's closed down, this guy was left to wander.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's them sort of.
So, I don't know if I
know what you mean, though. It's like people exacerbate it into there are no.
Yeah, there's no help for these people.
Yeah.
So Weir was sentenced to 25 years for her role in the crime. So I actually have these backwards because I just listened to a video that has this opposite that Morgan, and I literally just listened to this. So if I'm saying it backwards, you can watch your own YouTube video. People are getting, it's two girls, right? They flip them 50-50. Who was the aggressor and who was the following along? And they said Morgan was just following Anissa's footsteps and didn't really understand what was going on. And she just kind of went along and didn't want to make her mad because, there could be consequence with that. Went along with the crime and helped commit it.
I was just following orders.
Just a real quick clarification. The girl with personality disorder was the sort of maybe the instigator, and this girl with schizophrenia was following her lead.
Followed along.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I can just kind of add a little thing to this, because we're
schizophrenic falling personality.
Can we just say too, this should not be a thing about anyone suffering. This is not a derogatory to anyone that actually suffers.
But I want to kind of like just throw this and just say that like this is not really like a new thing we've seen in the modern age with like Slender Man. And I want to go back and like cite Dungeons and Dragons, which was like back in the late 70s, there were some kids that got really into Dungeons and Dragons. They were very disturbed. And I want to say there was like an event back in like 1979 or something where there was some like kind of suicide taking place that was tied to Dungeons and Dragons. But that's the thing. If you have somebody that is mentally unwell and they find some kind of fantasy to hook to, then that's like that kind of thing gets blamed. So like this thing was like, it was a work of fantasy, just like with the Dungeons and Dragons in like 1970 something, that some kids that were not mentally well hooked themselves to, and then used that for something else
to manipulate other people, right?
Yeah, like the
so
Dark Knight.
Actually, a friend of ours told me a story about this.
The Dark Knight, the kid that in Enora,
in Colorado.
The Dark Knight of North shooting. The guy that said he was the Joker.
No, he dressed as Bane or whatever.
He said he said he was the Joker. So he tied himself. Bane, he tied himself to a fantasy world. And then used that to do something else. So it's a mentally disturbed will tie themselves.
Also, not
to
excusing the actions at all.
No, we're absolutely not.
That's the whole point. I think
it's not fate. It's not fate.
This got deep.
Well, it's like in the movie Rope at the end when Jimmy Stewart is confronting the two guys that committed the murder, and they're saying they committed the murder basically because of the teachings of this one man. We're superior people, and Jimmy Stewart, obviously he regrets some of the teachings but he does say at the same time, there must have always been something inside of you that was going to do this.
That's exactly it. Exactly. They just you just needed to find the anchor to tie to
something
to
in
do
me
it.
that could never do it.
So if it wasn't this, it would have been something else.
You're gonna die, Brandon.
I mean, this is a huge in cultural impact. In general, Slender Man's had a bunch. The story, but the trial and the media coverage, because how young the girls were when they did this and stuff. Yeah. Like I said, they're both found mentally ill, which, I mean, there's tons of people out there committing whatever crimes. Like there's a kid right now that just pretended to have a mental illness and they threw him in jail forever. Like for doing something that was like anti-government or something.
It's not an A, B.
It's not a get out. Like if you have a real one, you had a real one. If you got a fake one, you got a fake one.
Case by case basis.
Funny thing about this though is now it says, and I can show you. One day ago, I'm in the gym. Right, one day ago, this video is posted by the Law and Crime Network. Right, Law and Crime Network, and we're referencing other things. I was just like, hey, let me get a last minute. What's going on? Let me listen to some Slender Man jazz. Right. So the Morgan actually came up to be released.
I just pictured. You could actually look that up. Slender Man
jazz. Smooth jazz 102.9.
Sorry.
So anyway, one of these girls was actually set to be released from prison.
Just
Check
recently.
This out. Yeah, like overturned.
Like 11 years
it's like,
ago.
Hey, you've been good citizen, whatever that leads to that, right? Anyway, they started looking at, she was reading a book. This is crazy, right? And you can look this up, on your own time, because I've wasted too much mental whatever on this. But so she's reading a book and they're like, well, we can't let her out because she's been reading a book that is like a dark fiction about crime, violence, sexual tension, like all this stuff. And they're like, that's not good for her mental health because that's what got us here in the first place, right? And they're also like, well, what level of I don't know what the case is, surveillance or something do you have to have on a person, right? Well, she didn't get this book from the library at the mental health thing. Somebody sent it to her, right? Fan, I guess, or whatever. And it was a man, and he sent her another letter that she supposedly ripped up recently when she got approved to get out, right? Like, so it could be, this is one of those weird things. This is why I hate true crime. Like, it's like, oh, I love you. You can come stay with me when you get out of prison. Like one of these weird things creepy. Or something like that. Who knows, right? And it's like, all right, this is crazy. She said she ripped it up. Who knows what there's what is it? There are always three stories, right? There's somebody else's and then the
two sides, right? And then what actually happened.
Yeah. So they've decided to keep her in prison for currently as of today. And there could be more videos coming out. I'm sure anything like this happens. I'm sure other people are going to make videos on it or whatever. So we'll get more information and news. But so one of the people was actually set to walk free and just got reversed due to the type of, fiction that they were reading while incarcerated. Is that the right thing to say? I don't know.
Well, they were, they were in a facility.
Yeah. But apparently she's been a model citizen, like all that, while they're in,
model prisoner.
Yeah, I don't know how to. Yeah,
not
what's the right? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a model person in this facility. I just thought that was weird that like literally we're doing this. And
it's weird. So
within 24 hours.
So in 20,
this is recent.
No, yeah, this is one day ago. This video got posted. Yeah, when I saw this, it was like
it just totally by happenstance we happened to choose this topic. Yeah,
so this is like current stuff. Yeah, current things happening. I know, creepy.
It was fate.
But it's funny. The Slender Man movie came out in 2018, so it was only 4 years after that attack happened, and the father of the victim, which she survived, so she's still here, she's still around.
That's good. Yeah, I mean,
but when the movie came out, he's quoted by saying with the Associated Press, "It's absurd that they made a movie like this. It's popularizing a tragedy." I'm not surprised, but in my opinion, it's extremely distasteful. All we're doing is extending the pain of all three of these families. So he actually mentioned to the families of the attackers of his daughter, all three of these families that have gone through. So it's it's huge, one of it's
really what's interesting too about the thing about the movie, it wasn't like it was some sort of serious, hey, we're going to make a drama out of the
murder. The attempted murder.
What happened, the consequences, the human cost, like a mature movie.
Right.
Yeah.
It was totally exploit the supernatural thing of Slender Man, and it's going to lead to murder and mayhem and people scream, so it was a total exploit. 100% an exploitation production.
I love it when you say exploitation films because it makes me think of all those 70s like Cannibal, Holocaust, and like all those wild things.
It was a totally shameless thing. Yeah. It's just not grimy looking.
Grindcore, yeah.
It's not grimy looking anymore, so therefore now people can get away like, no, it's really serious bullshit. It's totally an ugly money opportunity, the movie.
Yeah.
For sure.
Slender Man started as pixels on a screen, a digital boogeyman conjured up for fun. But its story proves that ideas, especially the terrifying ones, can grow beyond their origins and take root in the minds of those willing to believe. The Slender Man stabbing showed us the dark side of the internet mythology, where fiction bled into reality with some devastating consequences.
So was Slender Man just another creepypasta, or did we, in our endless fascination with things that go bump in the night, create a monster that refuses to die? One thing is for sure, whether he's real or not, Slender Man is never too far away, lurking just out of sight. For Zumundous, I'm Doolin.
And I'm Keith.
Rick.
Greg.
And we'll see you next week, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, that's a wild
That
man.
is a wild tale, man. But it kind of goes to show, don't take fiction too seriously, man.
Zumundous.